I smiled. No, really? I mean it. Because I think we often learn the most from the people who challenge us, don't you? I turned my gaze to my father. Dad, you always told me that family is supposed to build each other up, that we should support one another, celebrate each other's successes. My father swallowed, his grip tightening on his drink. He didn't like where this was going. And I used to believe that, I continued. I really did. But then, somewhere along the way, I realized something. The room was completely silent now. Stephanie's fingers were curled so tightly around the stem of her wine glass that I half wondered if it would snap. I set my glass down gently on the table beside me. I realized that for some people, support only exists when you fit into the version of yourself they want you to be. That as long as you play the role they've written for you, whether it's the golden child or the black sheep, they'll keep you right where they need you. And if you step outside that role... I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. Well, that's when they show you how they really feel. I heard a few uneasy shifts in the crowd, people glancing at each other. Olivia was looking at my father, waiting to see his reaction before deciding how she should feel. Hunter was smirking, like this was all just entertainment to him. And Stephanie, she was still smiling, but her knuckles were white. I used to think that if I just proved myself, if I worked hard, if I was successful, if I played by the rules, you'd see me differently, I said, my voice softer now, but no less steady. But I get it now. It was never about me. It was never about what I did or didn't do. Stephanie opened her mouth, probably to cut me off, but I didn't let her. I turned my attention back to my dad. Because at the end of the day, I was never supposed to succeed, was I? His expression flickered, just for a second. I let that hang in the air before exhaling, rolling my shoulders back. But I did. I built something for myself. I made a life that has nothing to do with this family. And let me tell you, it's been the most peaceful, fulfilling thing I've ever done. I could see the questions forming on people's faces, the doubt, the curiosity, because they had no idea what I was talking about. I was done letting them believe the version of me that Stephanie and my father had carefully crafted over the years. Stephanie let out another forced laugh, trying to regain control of the room. Oh, come on. This is ridiculous. It's just a name tag. I turned my gaze to her. You're right, I said smoothly. It is. But it's also a pattern. A lifetime of moments just like this. Little digs, little jokes, little ways of reminding me that no matter what I do, in your eyes, I'll always be the disappointment. My father finally cleared his throat, stepping forward slightly. That's enough. I met his gaze head on. Oh, I agree. It is enough. And then, before anyone could process what was happening, I picked up my glass again. I raised it slightly, letting the weight of my next words settle over the room. To the last time you'll ever see me. The silence was deafening. My father stiffened. Stephanie's jaw actually dropped slightly before she snapped it shut. Someone in the back muttered, "Wait, what?" And then, without another word, I set my glass down, turned on my heel, and walked toward the door. I could feel them watching me. Could feel the panic starting to creep in, because this wasn't like the other times. I took one last glance back before stepping through the door, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was walking away from a fight. I was walking toward something. Toward freedom. Toward peace. Toward the life I'd been building, away from the drama that had always defined my family. As I stepped outside, I took a deep breath, the cool night air filling my lungs. It was over. I had cut ties in the way I should have years ago. No more pretending. No more trying to win approval from people who had never truly cared about me, unless I fit their image of what I was supposed to be. I drove home that night in silence, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders with every mile. But even as I sat in my quiet living room, surrounded by the life I had built for myself, a small voice in my head whispered, had I gone too far? Had I really done the right thing? Was I too harsh? The next few days were a blur of missed calls and unread texts. I didn't check social media because I already knew what I'd find, the fallout. The family group chat was blowing up, filled with messages I had no intention of reading. Because let's be real, I walked out on my dad's birthday celebration. I had publicly humiliated him. And Stephanie, my stepmother, she was probably livid. She'd spent years trying to push me aside in favor of her perfect little world, and I had just shattered that illusion in front of everyone. Finally, my aunt, the only person who had ever seemed to understand me, texted, "Are you okay?" I stared at the screen for a long moment. Was I okay? Better than I had been in years. But also unsure. I told her I needed time. She didn't press. Then, the next morning, my father called. "Where are you?" he asked, his tone familiar, tight, controlled, already laced with disappointment. No matter what I did, I was always a letdown in his eyes. "I'm at home," I said. "I'm not coming back." His silence told me everything. "You can't just leave like this, you know," he finally said. "This family, we have to stick together." I didn't even hesitate. Not if sticking together means pretending to be someone I'm not. Not anymore. That was the last time we spoke. Weeks passed. I stayed away from all family events. Weddings, birthdays, whatever else they tried to organize. Some relatives fell in line with my dad and Stephanie's narrative. Others just pretended nothing had happened. I heard through the grapevine that my dad was hurt, that Stephanie was furious, that my brother and sister were disappointed in me for making a scene, but none of it bothered me. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't living for their approval. I was still thriving, still building my own life, still me. And while I wasn't exactly happy about cutting them off, I felt a kind of peace I hadn't known in years. I haven't spoken to anyone in the family since that day. So here I am, Reddit? AITAH for walking out like that? For making that toast and cutting them off completely? Did I take it too far, or was this long overdue? I know I'll never get my dad's approval. I know I'll never be the daughter he wanted. But maybe, just maybe, I've finally figured out that I don't need to be. So Reddit, let me know. Was I out of line, or was this the only way to finally stand up for myself?